And we're live here too. Hello, all. So, for today,
Sure.
the idea of big picture thinking and the idea of small picture thinking, probably both necessary as we maneuver life, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
But I'm always fascinated by people who really have a big picture mindset. They're able to look at the journey they're on, or the idea they have, or the circumstance they find themselves in.
Yeah.
And work through problems or work through direction and look at the big, broad picture and then act accordingly or put a plan in place. And I think that is not very common. I don't find that common in my life, my sphere, people that I've met in business. And I want to talk about the difference between big picture thinking and small picture thinking.
Well, I think a lot of it deals with time horizon thinking, right? So to me, like where I am in my life, I'm thinking the next 15 to 20 years. Like that's the horizon I'm looking at, right? I'm 46 years old. I'm saying, what am I going to do over the next 10 to even 20 years with the firm, with my profession, family? And like that's my horizon, right? Because I'm at that point right now. I'm not thinking quarter by quarter or month to month or paycheck to paycheck or even year to year. I'm thinking of the moves I make now or the things I put in place now. How are they going to impact me 10 years from now? What can I do now to make a better 10 years from now? And I think as you progress through life, I'm talking just professionally, right? When you're a younger professional, I think you're not thinking long-term. You don't even know how to do that yet, right? You're thinking of the next 30 days, the next quarter, maybe the next 6 months. Maybe? I feel like that is partially survival mode because I know I was like that when I was younger. I was just like, how do I get through the day? How do I get through this week? How do I get through this month? Okay, this year, what am I going to do differently next year? I was thinking in a shorter time window. As I've gotten older and grown the firm and looked at life differently, I'm now taking a much longer view of life. And that's, to me, that's my big picture thinking. Now, there's multiple pieces to it, right? You can think just, not necessarily from a time horizon perspective, but like just a significance of what you're doing perspective, right? But the way I define big picture is not what I'm doing today, tomorrow, or even next month, next year. It's 10 years from now. What am I doing? And how is everything I'm doing today going to impact that?
Do you think there's fundamentals that kids either get or they don't get at an early age, which sets the tone for that type of thinking?
I mean, I think it can, right? And I've said this before on our podcast, I've realized, especially when Gabe was younger, that kids will emulate their parents. They're not going to listen to what I say. They're going to do what I do. So I think if children are around people that take long-term thinking or use, that longer time horizon, they'll start thinking that way too, because that's how they see the world similarly to their parents, right? Like they're thinking, okay, what am I going to do 5 years from now? What am I doing now to set myself up for success? Like even like Ellie, like she, last year when she was in middle school, she was thinking about this class she's going to take next year and then how that's going to help her sophomore year. She's already thinking a longer time horizon, as a 14-year-old freshman in high school. Gabe was the same way. I think a lot of it has to do with how the kids are brought up.
You think girls are like maybe more inclined to get that at an earlier age than guys?
I think girls are just way more smarter than guys, way more intelligent.
It's hard to argue that.
I mean, it really is, and I can say that. I mean, no, it's true because I think we're if I'm talking men, I think we get caught up in we think so fast and we think sometimes irrationally.
Or reactionary.
Reactionary. Yeah, I think women can be very pensive in their thoughts. They can be very, I don't want to say calculated because that comes off the wrong way. They can be very strategic in the way they think. Even though they they say women can be emotional, I don't necessarily agree with that.
I think they think in a more sophisticated way, as
absolutely
than men do.
100% they do, 100%. And I think I think women can definitely take a longer term viewpoint on life than men can. I think it's a struggle for men because we're animalistic by nature, right? So we are always looking for that next kill, the hunt, right? That's a lot of men. If you're wired like an entrepreneur or an alpha male, you're chasing the hunt. The hunt is the thrill, right? it's not the kill of the animal, it's the hunt. So we're always looking for the next thing. That to me is just, it can be reactionary thinking, it can be short-term thinking, where I think women are looking at, how can I set up my life for success? I think they are way more future-based thinking than men are. As a whole. Now there are, men that do it a lot better and women that do it, a lot worse, but I think as a whole, women are a lot better futuristic thinkers than men.
So would it be safe to say maybe women could be better planners than men?
Oh, yeah. Yes, 1,000%. My wife Laura plans things like she's probably already packed for a vacation 2 years from now. I don't even know we're going on vacation in 2 years, but she already knows where we're going and is packed. So yes,
no, I get it.
I packed the night before. I'm like, we're on vacation tomorrow. Let me put some shit together.
Rocco and I were lamenting about chess before we started here.
Yes,
and I kept thinking about my friend Ed Lattimore. Look him up, friends.
Yeah,
Ed's he's a competitive chess player,
really,
on top of all the other things he does, motivational speaker and a whole bit, but and absolutely loves it. To hear him talk about chess is something else.
Just started getting back into it.
He studies the game, but he loves the fact that it really requires bigger picture thinking. And him and I talked once before. He goes, that's kind of something you don't find too much of as you maneuver in society today.
No, and that's why I do love the game of chess, because you can't think of the next move. You have to think 3 to 5 moves ahead.
It's not checkers.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. And that's why I started getting back into. So I played it as a kid and knew the game as a kid. Never really got deep into it. But I always loved logic games. And so I started getting into it recently. And it's because my brain's wired that way. I feel like I'm never looking at the next moves. I know I've already predicted in my mind with a certain degree of certainty, with a pretty predictable degree of certainty, what's going to happen. So I already know that. So I'm thinking, okay, what are the next 3 moves after that? And how will those be impacted by different decisions I make? I've just always been a thinker like that.
So would I be safe to say that you always had the confidence that the next move was coming? I need to address it.
So yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think it's not necessarily the confidence. It's just, it wasn't the confidence the move was coming. I always felt like I had the confidence of whatever move came, I kind of knew the different variables of it and how I was going to solve it. Okay. So to me, it's like whatever one of these ones happen, I know it's one of these is going to happen. I'm confident in my ability to handle each one of those. So now what's the next thing I got to worry about, or the thing after that? So I was always thinking of, like, now it's like, okay, as a friend, like, I know we're going to get to X, but I'm not thinking about X. I know we're doing the things right now to get us there. It's how do we get to X times 10?
That's a level of confidence, though. I mean, you don't think about it because the way you're wired, I think. But when you step back and look, because I really do believe that, maybe part of the problem with the lack of big picture thinking could be that some folks don't have the confidence that next opportunity will get there for them to choose from, or they will have the confidence to make the next move, so to speak. So maybe that prohibits some big picture thinking.
Well, I agree. And I think the reason why people lack confidence is because they haven't done the work to build the confidence. To me, confidence is a funny thing, right? It's not, I don't believe it's something you're born with. I don't really subscribe to that. Like you're born as a confident person. Because I was a shy kid. I wasn't confident as a kid. I was probably more introverted as a kid. As I've gotten older, developed my skills, learned more about myself, accepted more about myself, and realized what mattered and what I'm really good at. That's how I develop confidence, because I've put in the work. I say that I train every day, mentally and physically. Since my 20s, I've been reading books every single day, trying to learn something new every single day. I've been into health and fitness since I was a kid. So I've put in so much work over the years that, yes, I am confident in my abilities at this stage in my life. Am I anywhere close to where I'm supposed to end up? No, I have so much farther to grow and so much farther to go, but I am confident as where I am right now as a 46-year-old man, I can solve the problems I'm faced with on a day-to-day basis. So because of the work I did.
Yeah, I mean, confidence builds from experience.
100%.
I mean, it's just natural. And I don't know why
it's cockiness.
100%. And I don't know why that is missed so often in society. It's really missed. Like that's, and the other thing too is the confusion between confidence and cockiness.
Mhm.
Because I have been told over the course of my years that at
Mhm.
times I come off as cocky in certain
Mm.
circumstances, and I probably was back then. But I
Sure.
also, when I was working hard not to come off that way and to really work hard on my humility, I still had some pushback in that regard. Then
Mhm.
I thought, well, maybe that's a reflection of just I've got a lot of confidence and I exude it, and maybe it's not landing well
Sure.
with the security level of the people who are hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I think, again, confidence is something you have to build. Like, I I I used to say it, but I don't like it anymore. The fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've changed the way I think
That's
about
a
that.
70s phrase.
But I think about it as take it till you make it, meaning take the
Ah,
bumps, take the bruises, take the cuts and scrapes until you make it, because that is a requirement to make it. You had to build a level of confidence and a level of expertise and success in any area of life. You're going to have to get kicked and scraped and punched and
absolutely.
beaten over and over again. Those are the scars it takes to get there. That's why I say take it till you make it, because you have to be willing to take that, build the resilience, build the greatness, and then get there. Most people aren't willing to take it because it's too hard.
Mhm.
It's very difficult
And painful.
It's extremely
times.
painful, but that's how you get to that next level of success, that next level of expertise, that next level of confidence.
Yeah. I think the phrase that got bounced around a lot when I started podcasting
Mhm.
5 years ago was that I think Rogan kind of said it first, and it was reiterated by some other podcasters, that the skill of conversation is like a muscle. The conversational skill is like
Yes.
it's like a muscle. Podcasting is a muscle memory. You need to get in the weeds, get dirty, make your mistakes, but really learn from your mistakes and
Mhm.
refine your approach and build podcasting or conversation
Mhm.
muscle.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And that analogy can be applied to anywhere in life.
I mean, anything you do is like I have been playing a brain game in the morning, every morning for 10 years straight,
Okay.
just to improve my brain. It's just literally an app that's a brain game
Mm-hmm.
that I have been playing on my phone. What is it, 2024? Since probably about 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day, maybe miss 3 days in a 10-year period.
Luminosity?
No, it's a different one. It's called
Okay.
Peak.
Okay.
I used to play that one before Peak came out. But that's just me 15 minutes every morning just training my brain, not for
Building
any
muscle.
particular skill, just the skill of critical thinking.
Right.
And understanding how to deduce solutions to problems.
Yeah. Yeah. It just it's got, you have to have the want to do it. And
Yeah.
I think when we were talking about big picture thinking too, I don't think that people are born with it either. I do
Mhm.
believe it comes down to skill set naturally and the want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think the mind and the soul needs to be excited about this potential journey, or excited about the activity, or excited about the idea. And if
Yeah.
we don't have the excitement,
Mhm.
whether it's a new job, whether it's a new organization you belong to, whether
Mhm.
it's a creation, whatever it is, I think the excitement, the internal excitement, precipitates starting to build and look and seeing what's possible. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's real prevalent all the time. You know, how do you spark that excitement in people?
That's really a tough question, because everybody's excitable differently. What excites me is not going to excite you.
Right.
But I do think people have to. I think what it comes down to is, as human beings, sometimes we get so caught up in our day to day, just the mundane grind of daily life. Wake up, make coffee, have breakfast, get the kids to school, go to my job, stay till 5, come home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed, rinse, repeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this Groundhog Day like scenario. We're not taking the time to step back and say, does this excite me? And if not, what does excite me? And how do I pursue that? I think a lot of people think just finding that Groundhog Day like scenario is what life is meant to be. And maybe for some it is. Maybe for some that's what they choose. And more power to them. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think people need to ask themselves a question: it comes down to first, do you want to change your situation? Some people don't. Some people are good, right? I'm good. I don't need to be a big picture
or at least
thinker.
they've convinced themselves that they're good.
Yeah, but again, that means if you've convinced yourself, then you're good, right? I don't need to be a big picture thinker.
Maybe.
So we'll leave that to debate on the side.
Okay.
So I don't need to be a big picture thinker. I can just think paycheck to paycheck because I'm comfortable living that way, right? If that is not the life you choose and you want to change, you have to be willing to take a step back and find out what excites you, because finding that is what will ignite the spark to change.
Right.
Too many people will not change because they don't have a spark or a catalyst that makes them change. I hated my job in corporate America. I fucking hated it. I had no control over my own destiny, my own schedule. There was a catalyst. Fired the CFO. I'm like, this company's a sinking ship, and I left. That was the catalyst, but I knew what my desire was, and it's in that moment sparked it. And then this is where I am. But I had to have that moment, that catalyst. Some people never get the catalyst.
Yes, and I'm going to add to that. I've had people tell me over the years that my brain isn't wired for entrepreneurship, or the idea of putting big complex things together. I just can't see it. I can't see the vision that you and some others see, Eric. I can't see it. I can't think that complex. My brain doesn't work in a arena of complexity. And I would take it. I would internalize that and go, well, maybe that's just the way it is. And then I heard Dr. Drew. Remember Dr. Drew?
Yeah.
A similar question was posed to him, and he said, if you ask the same person who just gave you that answer to walk you through their state of worry, the things they worry about, moments that cause them stress, moments of anticipation of impending doom, you walk through how they process their impending distress. There's probably more complexity on how that story builds within their minds to get them worked up and stressed and worry. There's that complexity, if channeled in a positive fashion, is absolutely the road to bigger picture thinking. We're already doing it. It's just not in a positive way that serves us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was to me, it hit with me.
That is really spot on, because you're right. Like I feel like we've been so programmed to look at the negative first. That's our default. Our default is negative. Like I said before, you walk down the street, and if I smile at someone, people's reaction is, what's wrong with you? Why are you smiling? Not a pleasantry. Like, hey, you have a nice shirt. I'm smiling at you. I'm saying hello. It's, what is my ulterior motive? Like, people are cautious of positive behaviors because we've been so wired that we've been told that human beings are rotten, that we do mean shit, we do evil shit. So we have this skepticism for people, and for basic positive human emotion interaction, we are skeptical of it. If you walk down the street and I've ever met you and you look at me and smile and say, hello, how are you? Most people are like, what? Who are you? I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? Or 30 years ago, I'd be like, hi, my name's Rocco. How are you? Are you from around the town? And then we would stop and have a conversation. It doesn't happen anymore. Think about the last time you were somewhere in a public place walking. Did a stranger came up to you, stopped, and you had a conversation, and then just went about your day?
Long time
ago. Exactly. But that's what we need to get back to. That's what we need to get back to, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And then I completely agree. We are predisposed to look toward the negative, or to find negativity.
Yes.
And then, as our human brains work, that worry leads to this worry and this what if and this what if. And the next thing you know, we've taken one little, probably untruth, and have extrapolated in your mind to this huge problem in a rather complex way of thinking, which was Dr. Drew's point, that you could have been using all that energy and all that complexity towards building something amazing, creating great memories.
Yeah. And I look back at myself, when I used to deal with issues or challenges, the anticipation is what killed me. It was like, I'd worry about it and think about it. Now I've gotten to the situation, or to the position in life where, okay, this is a problem I got to address. This is a tomorrow problem. That means I'm not going to worry about it till tomorrow, till I'm face to face with it. If I have a client that wants to talk about something they're unhappy with, And I can't get that's a tomorrow problem. That means I'm not going to waste my evening worrying about that because there's nothing I can do to change it in the moment. All I can do is face it head on, and I'll worry about it when I'm in it.
Yeah.
And it's not even worrying about it. It's just dealing with it and solving it.
Right.
And that's why I try not to take things home with me. I try not to like let that emotion come over me. Am I perfect? No, there are days where I get pissed when stupid shit happens. But for the most part, I feel like I stay pretty calm. And then when I'm up against a thing that has been causing me strife, that's when the emotions come out because I'm right in it and I just deal with it.
So back to the idea of big picture thinking, like that Stoic phrase of the obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
Right. To imply that the work, you'll find your solutions within the work.
Correct.
The answers to the problems, the answers to the questions are in the work itself in most instances. But that's tough. And work requires physical duress, mental duress for people, right? I mean,
that's what work is. Yes.
Yes. So asking people to be patient enough to try to find the answers in the work is, it's a difficult ask for some folks.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think we as a country have lost patience?
Lost patience?
Because that's really what it is.
Well, we're would you not agree we're in a society of immediacy?
Oh, well, I mean, we've been in that society for a long time. Yes.
Yes, and we've trended toward that for decades. There's no question. I think we're untrusting.
Okay.
I think that leads to it as well too.
Okay.
I think society has gotten unbelievably easier in terms of just surviving.
Okay.
Mechanisms in place to do that. I think it's a combination of all those together that and I've said it before too. I think given the druthers, humans will always choose the laziest route.
The path of least resistance.
I don't think that we're lazy for the sake of being lazy, but we will take the path of least resistance.
We're not lazy for the sake of being lazy, but we're comfortable for the sake of being comfortable. To me,
we like it.
Well, yeah, because I look at laziness as lack of motion, right? You're not putting in effort.
Right.
Comfort is I'm secure in the effort I've put forth. This is all the effort I want to put forth. This makes me comfortable. Getting uncomfortable is putting in effort above and beyond what you're used to. Laziness to me is just inaction, like lack of action. You're not doing the thing you need to do. That's just being lazy.
Yeah.
And I think people conflate the two terms. I think when it comes down to coming back to the big picture thing, I think what gets in the way is one, the laziness, right? It's hard to think big picture. Two, I don't think people have taken the time to understand what their big picture actually is. And then three, I think this may sound morbid, but I think a lot of people don't think about the big picture because it calls them to question their own mortality. Like if I'm thinking where I want to end up, that means there's a finite end to my life. So if I'm thinking like, hey, I'm thinking 10 years down the road, when I retire, I want to move to a beach, I want to buy a boat, it's going to be in my 70s. Take a step back, like I'm going to be in my fucking 70s. Like that means I'm almost,
so there's avoidance going on.
There's avoidance, I think, because you're facing your own mortality.
I never looked at it that way.
I mean, that's just how I see it. That could be, I'm just one person. But I see it like that because I think that is something we all fear as humans.
Certainly.
We all fear our own mortality. Let's be real. Like no
Certainly.
one. If anybody says they're comfortable with death, they're lying. I believe.
Certainly.
But I think a lot of people just avoid it because they think if they avoid it, it'll just last longer. Instead of actually planning big picture. So when you do get to that point in life, you've actually done what you need to do to make that part of your life comfortable, which you have earned now.
I would agree. I have had people that are actually have told me when we've talked about big picture thinking versus non-big picture thinking that they were offended by the question. I've had people say that to me.
What offends them about the question?
I asked that question, and it's like you're implying that I'm not successful, and they take it internally. It's like I asked a question. I wasn't saying you are this or you are this or you are this. I asked a question to talk about it, and even the act of talking about it was offensive in these two instances, which was just it was recently too. And that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. It's like I just was really like I couldn't believe that we could even today twist the idea of being offended by a question about big picture and small picture thinking, but we did.
Yeah, I don't know how is that offensive.
The insinuation maybe that if you are not a quote unquote big picture thinker or don't consider yourself one, or you find it difficult, that somehow you are inferior in some way, which was not remotely wasn't remotely, I'd venture to say, because, I guess the implication is those who do dynamic, amazing things in life are big picture thinkers, and those who do not are not. But I'm sure there are many folks who struggle with big picture thinking that are extremely successful in this world doing things, just different things.
Yeah. Again, if I think through this, right, the big picture thinking that eludes so many people, I truly feel like it is almost it's not that they can't, it kind of comes back to what you're saying, they just don't want to. They don't want to think big picture. One, it's difficult. Two, it calls into questions a lot of things. And then three, I think the other piece of it, kind of talking about the mortality, like I did, briefly before, it also puts into perspective what you haven't accomplished in years wasted. Just think about that. If people start, if you were a kid and you said, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to own my own company, have a wife and kids, and have $5 million in the bank, right? That was your dream as a kid. You put it out there. You're like, I'm going to do this. You're 38 years old now, right? And your station in life is, I have a decent job, I'm divorced, or I haven't got married yet, and I have a couple $100,000 in the bank. For you to look at your big picture again is going to call into question all the years in your head, whether right or wrong, you've wasted. I told myself at 20 I was going to be this at 40. I'm 38.
So
I'm
holding up a mirror.
It's holding up a mirror. Instead of looking at, and I just did a video on this, looking at how far you've come, you're looking at how the gap to where you told yourself you were going to be. And I think that gap,
back to the negative, right?
Right. That gap screws up everybody. I've gotten bitten by it in the past by always looking at how far I have to go or what I haven't accomplished yet, instead of looking at what I did accomplish. Like, it truly is. Like, if I look back, this is exactly where I wanted to be years ago. And I'm here, but I'm like, this is not where I want to be anymore. Like, I want to be somewhere different.
Well, the goalpost, if you're doing it, quote unquote, right.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe, I think we both do, that the goalpost will continue to change to serve you in the end.
Yes, it has to change. Exactly right. But again, that's why I think people don't look big picture, because they're confronted. They're confronted with the mirror. They're confronted with potential wasted years. They're confronted with all the inadequacies they may see in themselves, instead of looking at, okay, look how far I've actually came. We just have to change our framework in this country. We're too stuck. Like,
so it's more emotionally driven then, because to Dr. Drew's point, you've already proven to yourself that you do have the ability to be a rather complex thinker. You're just thinking about things in the negative.
Yeah. Or you're not thinking about complex things. Right?
Okay.
If I'm worried about what's on my Facebook feed and what I'm having for lunch, what kind of, there's no complex thought to that.
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to go to Chipotle for lunch and I'm going to look at Facebook for an hour. What's the complexity in that?
Yeah.
People aren't putting themselves in a situation to have to think complexly.
So that goes to the idea that we're not, on a broad basis, challenging ourselves on a day in, day out standpoint.
I don't,
or are we? I don't know.
I think there are definitely people that do. I think if you take a large, swath of the American society right through the middle, I think those people are not challenging themselves. Again, it's coming back to, I get up, I make coffee, I throw some eggs on, I get my kids to school, I go to my job, I go home for lunch, I go back to my job, I leave at 5, I go to the gym, I watch some TV at night, go to bed, and I repeat. Weekends, maybe do something different. There's no, in that, what in that circle are they really doing?
Yeah. It again comes back to that idea of self-reflection that we touch on here all the time, and it's not very pleasurable all the time to do it.
No, if you do it right, it's ugly, it's gross, and it's also freeing
if you do it honestly.
Right. It's revealing and freeing. I think you have to, and I've done it multiple times over my life. And each time I do it and have that reflective period, I uncover more about myself, and I'm way more honest with myself than I was a year ago or 2 years ago.
Sure.
Because you understand who you are. You understand your faults, your flaws. You understand what makes you you, what makes you unique. But it takes a period of self-reflection to understand that, yeah, you can be a shitty person. Yeah, you can be negative sometimes. You can have all these negative qualities, but you can still be so much more than that. And you have to go through that self-reflective period to figure out what you're truly made of.
Okay, so you've done a lot of hiring in your day, whether
Yeah.
it's been in corporate circumstances or your own business.
Mhm.
You've been on a lot of panels in your life.
Mhm.
You've done a lot of introspective stuff, but
Sure.
you've also talked a lot about what makes us as humans tick.
Mhm.
Do you think it's possible for employers?
Mhm.
Let's talk about the employment idea.
Okay.
Is it possible for employers to look into someone in 20 minutes of conversation and determine whether you think there's a good chance they're a big picture thinker or not?
So I think with the right set of questions and the right interviewing tactics, potentially 20 minutes could be enough. I don't think on average that is enough. I think you need to spend more time with the person. You need to ask a person the right questions when you're hiring someone. Hiring is the biggest challenge right now. For me, for a lot of companies, I just have a hard time because I either hire just because we need somebody, or I'm trying to hire strategically, and those hires take a lot longer because I want to make sure I'm not just filling a void or a need. I'm building something on top of a person. So it takes a little bit longer of an interview process and a thought process. Now, we need to refine it more and have a deeper dive into people. But I think you can, in an interview, get that information if you ask the right questions and you understand how to read people.
Do you think that's going on today? Do you think organizations, for certain positions, they're really looking for big picture thinkers?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean,
You think?
there are a lot of successful companies out there, right? Let's not knock every company. I do think that in certain roles in the organization, you have to have strategic thinkers, or the organizations won't grow organically or inorganically.
Well, I would think that would be a prime something to look for, whether it was a person on the line turning a knob, because they're obviously looking on how to improve, what they can do, where their place maybe potentially in the company can be.
Absolutely.
But I just wonder how would you determine, give me a question you'd ask in an interview that you would be a tell. I know I'm putting them on the spot, but
I know.
I'm fascinated on how our ability to determine, if someone is a big picture thinker or not.
So one question we've asked recently is, you're making a pot of tomato soup or tomato sauce, okay, and you realize you've put way too much salt in the sauce. What do you do? There's no right or wrong answer to it. It just tells me how a person thinks.
So do you add more tomato sauce to overcompensate? Do you increase the sauce, or do you pour it out and start over again?
Or do you add sugar to cut the salt? That's what I would do.
It's an option.
That's what I would do.
If you like sugar.
I know how to make. I know how to make sauce, and I know that there's a component of sweetness to sauce.
Certainly.
And the sugar can counterbalance that without overpowering it with sweetness. So it's just how I think. But what it does is in questions like that, right? They're really behavioral questions.
Yeah.
It's not about the job specifically, excuse me. It is about, here's a problem that doesn't have a right or wrong solution. Yeah. How would you solve it?
Right.
So to me, if I look at it, okay, and I'm just using that as an example. If someone said I would start over, then they're a perfectionist. That means the work process going to take longer. They're gonna clog up the system. Maybe not hire that person.
Yeah.
I don't know. If they say, I would make adjustments to the seasoning. They're problem solving.
Yeah.
Now I see whether they say add more tomatoes, pull some of the sauce out and dilute it with a different batch of non-salted tomatoes, or add sugar to it, whatever the case may be. They're finding a problem or a solution to the problem. They're not just scrapping it and starting over.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. That's really the two
interesting
sides of that question.
See, learn stuff today.
Yeah. I mean,
I've never interviewed for an employee. No job I've ever had. I was never never in a position to do that. I had a couple subordinates in corporate America, but they were kind of given to me. And I kind of never interviewed for my help at Boogie Street. I just guys hung around and say, "Hey, you want a job?" I mean, that's kind of how it was.
Oh, you're on the street? You look like you need a job.
Knock on wood, it worked out okay.
Fred was just wandering down the street like long hair.
All right, don't get the secret away. But I just wonder, because I don't think it gets talked about a lot.
No.
Like the mindset of an employee, the real mindset, and what are they thinking? And yes, it depends on every role. What are they thinking in regards to where they see themselves within that organization or within that particular field of study or field of discipline, whatever it is? Is it part of your organization, or are they seeing themselves in some other organization at a more prestigious position or something? You never know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've spoken to a lot of people recently. They're kind of my age, all in either ownership or leadership positions in organizations.
Okay.
And they're all kind of saying the same thing. They're trying to figure out what motivates people, what motivates, a younger generation or a different generation. And it's really hard because sometimes I feel like they'll just tell you what they think you want to hear. I'd rather have someone say, yeah, I'm not motivated by money. Like, I want a pure balance of life. Like, I don't want to work past 5, but I don't need to make $1 gazillion. I'm good. Like, people just need to be very upfront and transparent. No one's going to judge you one way or the other. I think employees and employers would have a lot easier time dealing with one another and setting each other up for success if employees were more honest about what they truly valued in life, and employers were willing to give it to them.
Okay.
Because if you come to me and you work for me and you say, money is not what I value most. I value recognition. Okay. I know that I need to recognize you more. Okay. I value my work-life balance. And I know you're probably never going to work past 5 unless it's absolutely required. And that's going to be few and far between. Mm-hmm. Right. There's just things like that. And you got to understand what you're getting. And I think employees are doing themselves a disservice by not communicating that on an ongoing and consistent basis.
And letting the management
know what motivates them.
Yeah, that's a real fresh and honest conversation that I can't see happens too much in corporate America.
No, it doesn't happen at all. And if I would love to have that. I would love for a person to come to me and say, "Here's what motivates me. This is what I really need to be." How about successful.
That for an interview question?
I mean, you ask that, but a lot of times you just get the bullshit. You get the canned answers. You know what I mean? Like, it's because especially lawyers, we're taught how to interview. We're told the right things to say.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can go and find any video on YouTube now how to interview the right way, like how to get an employer to love you. Like, they can say all the right things.
Right.
But again, I think where I see a problem, and again, talking to a lot of my clients and friends of mine that are in businesses, the big problem we're seeing now, and part of it's the generational gap, but I think there is this expectation by the employees for the employer to know what motivates me and motivate me that way. Where employers are like, just tell us, and this will be a lot easier. There's no conversation happening in the middle because, the management of a company tends to be so busy.
Right.
And it's not on their radar to say, hey, what motivates you? Let Eric come in my office. I want to talk to you and see. I feel like you've been performing on an average level recently. What is it that motivates you? How can I help you perform better?
Sure.
Is it more money? Is it a different title? Is it time off? What is it? I want to know what motivates you. And having those conversations will help tremendously. But a lot of times I think they're better served if an employee offers it up or initiates it.
Yeah.
Think about any boss out there. If an employee came to the boss and said, hey, I know I've been not performing at my best recently. And here's why I think, because I'm motivated by this and I haven't had any of it. Because sometimes that's all it is.
There's some honesty, huh?
It's honesty. Like sometimes it could be like, hey, I'm really motivated by recognition and positive reinforcement. And all I've been doing is fucking up. And no one's telling me anything good that I've done. And I guarantee if that conversation happens and that manager takes that into account and starts offering positive feedback, performance will improve.
There's no question.
They just told you exactly what they need and you give it to them. I need fed this. Here's this. Instead, employees say, I need fed this. Employers say, I think I know they want to eat this.
It's a dance.
And it's a dance. And no one's
when they're both
actually talking.
Yeah,
correct. Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's the problem I see in a lot of companies. Yeah. Hiring people is tough, man.
Yeah. I mean,
it takes a while.
Well, you're a firm that's hiring.
Yeah.
You're hiring with a requirement of an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that's got to be maybe hard to find.
It is. And we're even refining it because we're realizing, the more we hire, the more gaps we're finding in our hiring process and like what we're really looking for in people. So it's a constant refinement. And yes, one of our core values is an entrepreneurial spirit, but really defining what that means.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. That just means you got to be able to think outside the box.
Right.
And give a little bit of effort and think creatively and look at the practice of law as a practice, but also something that we sell, a service that we sell.
Right.
There's multiple pieces to it, but it's hiring is always tough for us. One, we just take a long time to hire to find the right candidates.
Well, it's funny you say that because there was always that I don't know, that fictitious thing about how do you motivate and finding the ultimate way to motivate someone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember years and years and years ago, my God, 50 years ago, almost 40 years ago, watching a Jim Rohn speech, and he said point blank, he's like, if you do a bad hire, if you do a really bad hire, you hire an idiot and you are successful at motivating them, all you really end up is a motivated idiot. And a motivated idiot might do more damage in your firm than an unmotivated idiot.
Yeah. No, I mean,
the point is be careful who you're out there trying to spend time on the motivation. Make sure the person is a good hire and worth it and has the capacity to take that little spark of motivation and run with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, that's where I think a lot of places go wrong, where you're putting a lot of effort and money and energy into a person that was never the right fit in the beginning.
Right.
So you're just blowing up.
I bet that happens a lot too.
100% it does. I mean, I've talked to so many clients that are businesses or business owners, and that happens more often than not. It truly does. And I think, again, from a business standpoint, there's a big cost to that, right? The replacement cost, the rehire, just doing the recruiting, that's a cost. Plus the lost time and the lost money from a revenue generating employee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hiring's an art form. It really is. It's tough. It is tough.
Is that probably the biggest? Is that the biggest struggle you've seen as you've grown this firm?
I mean, there's a million struggles.
Well, I mean, in terms of like what you've encountered as you've grown.
I mean, I've been very fortunate that I do have amazing people that work for me. Like that, like they're all good human beings. They all understand it. They're all improving day to day. So it's my job to mentor them and to get them to where they need to be. So that hasn't been a struggle. Yes. Has it been my greatest struggle? No. I think the greatest struggle I've had in growing the firm is in kind of what Matt says is translating my vision to everybody else. Like he always says he's the translator. He does a great job of it. But sometimes I make the assumption that everybody understands what I'm thinking. Everybody understands the vision I have, when I'm realized that they don't. And I need to either tell them or translate it to Matt so Matt can translate it to them.
Yeah.
Because I'm so far thinking, right? Like I'm thinking 10 years from now, like where we're going to be 10 years from now. I'm not thinking 10 months from now. Yes, there are short-term markers that measure our success and progress, but my brain is 10 years out. And if I can't articulate that in a frame of reference that they can understand, that's been the biggest struggle. It's hard.
Let me close this down today and ask you the question: where do you think the state of entrepreneurship is in today, 2024? The state of it, in terms of
state of it.
Yeah, meaning that how many of those out there working able-bodied people have the fire, have the desire to go do something, have the want to really do it?
I think more people today than ever before believe they have the want to do it.
Okay.
Until they get into it.
Because the web makes it look easy.
100%. I mean, go on Instagram and just search entrepreneur. You're going to see everybody in the fancy cars, fancy houses, trips, travel. Very few people are talking about the suck. Because 90% of the time it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You go through the 90% to enjoy the 10. Mm-hmm. It's not 50-50. It's not.
Amen.
But people, they believe they want it until they get in and they're like, oh, this is not what I wanted. This is not the freedom that was promised to me on Instagram. Now you can get it if you grind it out and put in the time. That's the payoff, right? that is a sacrifice. You know, you hard now for easy later, easy now, hard later. Like that's, I literally drew it on the board this morning. We were having our meeting. Like that is truly a perfect analogy for life in anything.
Agreed.
Think about working out, right?
Agreed.
Working out fucking sucks. It's hard now, but it makes life easier down the road.
Yes.
Like I feel great at 46,
Yes.
right? If I would have waited till 46 to start working out because I wanted easy, I didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
I'd be so far
No
behind
question.
in health.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I live that at my age. You know, it's like would I want to go through my life right now at the weight that I was 4 or 5 years ago? No.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
Life's hard enough. I mean, just, you know,
Right.
just in general,
Yeah.
just in terms of like not hard. Like I don't find life hard. I find a lot of challenges in
Sure.
life, but those challenges would be deeper and harder
Mhm.
if I didn't have the sustained energy and I wasn't having the level of vitality
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. No, I
You
mean,
know?
I agree. I think, again, it's one of those things where I that's every aspect of life when you think about it, right? Even performing professionally, you know, I've been fortunate enough that I learned at a very young age to improve myself daily, like
Mhm.
read daily, read books that improve me. Like that's
Mhm.
why I feel like I have an easier time today dealing with people and solving problems. If I would have waited even 5 years,
Right.
like into my 30s to start doing that, I would not be able to do the things I can do today.
Right.
It's about starting.
Well,
Just
the
start.
fundamentals your groundwork was done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
The fundamentals were laid.
in the groundwork is something that I think people skip, or they say,
Mhm.
"I'll do it later."
Mhm.
They're focused right now, like I just got to do this now. They're not. And again, that comes back to the whole point of this podcast, right? Short-term versus long-term thinking.
Absolutely.
Long-term thinking is I'm going to put in the work today and every day moving forward, because 10 years from now, all these incremental things I've been doing
Will
are going to
build.
pay off.
Yeah.
Short-term thinking is I want to enjoy today. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. You keep putting it off.
And
Putting
that
it
goes
off,
back
putting
to
it
your
off.
idea, your point of where do we stand today with patience.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right. People don't have the
And
patience to
how,
wait.
even though we probably deep down know it's
Mhm.
going to serve us well if we do it
Yeah.
correctly.
100%.
But the
100%.
temptation of the instant gratification is something, man.
Yeah, look, there were days where I'll go home like, I'm just gonna turn on Netflix and see what's on. And because I'm human, right? I do that. I'm not this person that like I come home and sit in a dark room and meditate and eat only red meat.
You're gonna ruin your reputation. Buddy.
No, but there are days where I come home like I'm just gonna sit here and watch The Office because I want to.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm okay with doing that, because every single day I put in some level of work.
Certainly.
There has not been a day in my adult life that I can remember, even on vacation, I'm doing something to better myself, even if it is for 10 minutes, playing my brain game, reading a book, journaling, something, working out. There's not a day that goes by in my entire adult life where I have not done one thing, not professionally, to improve myself personally. So that's why I'm okay when I can take those moments to rest or to
100%.
watch The Office or to watch a stupid movie that has no point but just makes me laugh, because I'm okay with it because I've done work that day to better myself.
100%.
You just got to do it.
Just do it. All right, partner.
Yes.
Always a treat.
Blast, man. Blast. I love it.
What we got next week?
Yes.
We'll see.
All right.